Coming up on The Returned.
I collapsed from a heat stroke and I collapsed on the trail. I remember going out of my body, going towards the light. It felt like I was in a river of souls, this light that was in front of me. And it did feel like a tunnel. I was going toward this light. There was absolutely unconditional love that was permeating through my being. All the souls that were moving, all of a sudden, my grandfather, I saw his back. I said, Papa, I said, have you met Jesus? All of a sudden, I was standing in front of Jesus. It was incredible love.
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. The truth always follows you back. Hi, and welcome to The Returned, a place where we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and lightworkers from around the world. So this week, for this interview, I have been really excited to meet our next guest. I have been waiting through Christmas and everything. I had this planned, and I'm so excited for you guys because I know you are going to love it. Today, we are joined by Tammy Lee Anderson, whose life has been shaped by multiple near-death experiences, 2 as an infant and 1 later during a heat stroke in the mountains. Tammy Lee, welcome to The Returned.
Thank you, MJ. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm really excited for you to be here. I know I told you that, and I was talking your ear off just before because, that's just me. That's what I do. I talk everybody's ear off. They're like looking at the time going, okay, let's go. But anyways, we'll get on with it for the audience. Your experiences are profound, but I feel that context matters just a little. So I was wondering if there was a way that you could share a little about your early life, your family, your upbringing, and whether spirituality or religion played any role in your home before your experiences.
Okay. Well, let's see. I wasn't brought up in a religious family. My parents didn't belong to a church, except for like a couple months. One time they did. They went to a church, and it was super scary. I remember that because the minister up front turned red, and he was telling everybody they were going to hell, and and I thought I never want to go back to that place. It was scary. Think I was about 5 or 6, and
Wow.
but no, we weren't raised in a religious household. But for some reason, I was always attracted to the light, to silence. As a child, I would spend time in my closet and just listening to the quiet. There was something I found soothing about the quiet. If I couldn't find it in there, then I would go outside, and I just love to be in nature. I always have. And very sensitive as a child, oversensitive, and that has to do with my birth. But I was sensitive to sound, smells. I was sensitive to emotions of people, ups and downs that they would have. I was just so tuned in and too tuned in. And anyways, so let's see. The best way to talk about this is 3 months I had a surgery, the second surgery, but I want to talk about the first near-death experience. I was actually born, stillborn. And people say, how in the world can you remember this? Well, I didn't remember any of this until I was 17 years old. And I don't know how I remembered, but anyways, I can tell you the story of how it came about. I was attracted to a little church that was near my house. And the reason why I was attracted is because of the quiet. I would go there and sit in the back when people weren't there. And I loved the smell of the incense and the candles burning. And I loved the light, how it came through the stained glass. And so I would just sit there often. And there was a priest that worked there, and we would see each other, but we never talked. And one day he came up to me and said, I see you here often he says, "What brings you here?" And I couldn't, I said, "I don't know. I just like the quiet." So, I really couldn't articulate, why I was so attracted to this quiet and this peacefulness. And so he said to me, "Well, can I say a prayer for you?" And I thought he would just say a few words and then be gone, and I said, "Okay." And so what he did was he has a gift for healing, this gentleman, and he people would come from all over to do healings with him. Anyways, he put his hands on the top of my head, and I felt this warmth go through my body, and it felt like warm honey, just like it was slow, and just I felt it settle in my solar plexus, and all of a sudden, it was just like an explosion, just and I had an explosion of memory, remembering, re-experiencing of my birth, of pre-birth. I felt emotions mostly of my mom. I felt her shame, I felt her fear. I was conceived before they were married, so that was a big deal in those days, and then I was born premature, so that broke the secret because they got married real fast to try to cover it up, and, uh, and that broke the secret, but I felt the fear. She never told me this. In fact, after these experiences, I shared it with her, and she was just crying. She couldn't believe that I had re-experienced or could tell her so many things about what she was feeling. I felt the emotions of my grandparents. I felt the emotions of the doctors and the nurses, and I felt the incredible peace. So I was born, uh, not breathing. The cord was wrapped around my neck, several times, and I was in the birth canal way too long. It was a 38-hour labor. My mom, poor mom, she really struggled, and so I was flat as a pancake when I came out, blue, and just not breathing, and they told my mom, "I'm sorry she didn't make it." And they took me into the room, and during this remembering, re-experiencing, I remember the panic around me and the busyness, and people took me into a different room and trying to get me breathing, and I remember being in the light, being held in the light. It was incredibly peaceful. It was home, it felt familiar. And then I was, like, drawn back, like, by a beacon. It was like a beacon of light, my mom's light, and it felt like it was pulling me back, and that that feels like what I was aware of then, that feels like the strongest pull that I had to return. Nobody asked me
Mhm.
if I wanted to return, it was just this draw of my mother's, "You can't go." You ha She worked very hard to have me, and she wanted me to be here, I guess, but so, then again, oh, that's the first how I was born, and then the I remembered the second experience, and the second experience was just a few months later. I had, the fontanelles had closed, so those are the soft spots in the head, and when a baby so the baby can's head can grow. Well, mine had closed, so they had to do surgery, else I would have died, and so what happened was they started taking me in this surgery, and the anesthesiologist misjudged. I was born 4 pounds, 2 ounces, and went down to 3 pounds, 2 ounces, so I could
Oh.
fit in a shoebox. I was really tiny, and he misjudged on the, anesthesia. So that took me to the next near-death experience, and I remember just floating into love and into the light, and that one I remembered, re-experienced, being surrounded by light beings, and they felt familiar, like family, just felt like I'd known them forever, and it was home, and I didn't want to be back in that body. At that point, it was very strong, I didn't wanna be back, and then I nobody asked me again. Nobody asked me when I wanna return, like I hear some people say, but I just got drawn back. into my body again. And then I wanna say there was another experience right after that that I remembered
Mhm.
as I was going through this healing with this priest. Um, there was another experience as an infant, one just a few months later after that one. This was completely I was out of my body. The next one, w I wasn't it wasn't a near death experience, but I was in between. It was like
Ah.
I was here and I was, like, waffling back and forth. It was a really interesting experience. I felt surrounded by love, surrounded by the light being, surrounded by peace and comfort, and terrified, going back into terror because they didn't use the second time that they attempted the surgery. I know they didn't use hardly any anesthesia. I was awake. And so so they had to cut the head open, and I remember being extremely cold, and so that was a pretty traumatic remembering because I remember going back and forth between being extremely, um afraid and seeing the lights of the room were just harsh. You know, the operating lights were harsh and the
Mhm.
smells, and it was freezing. I was freezing cold, shivering,
Mhm.
and then I'd be drawn back into the peace, and that light was soft, and it was just it would go right through your body, and it was like there was no body, of course, and it felt like it was you were part of that. It was just uh all-encompassing light that would just permeate every bit of me, and unconditional love. And so going back and forth between that was, quite, remembering. And anyways, so I did tell my mom I shared that experience with her after, after this. I mean, we were sitting in a v her work van, and I started to share what I experienced, and it was quite Uh, she said, "We never told you this, you know, how could you remember?" And again, I want to tell people that I don't know how I remember, I just do. So I
Mhm.
imagine that, and there's a morphogenic field that people talk about, that all memory is there, from the beginning of time, probably all our past lives, everything, all the memories there in our bodies, you know, and I've done 30 years of, physical therapy on people. I have a master's degree, and one of my master's degrees is in exercise physiology, kinesiology, and so I
Mhm.
know that when I touch into people that often, memories happen. They're carrying them not only in their body, but in their field, and the same
Mhm.
thing with, I mean, I got another master's degree in counseling and marriage and family therapy and just psychological end of it because of the arisings people would have. They'd have memories, and so they didn't have any kind of degree that blend the 2, so I went and got 2 master's degrees in different fields so I could blend the mind and the body, and I've got a undergrad degree in theology. So we are body, mind, and spirit, and so I was searching how to blend this. And so my experience was that, where all of this and the memory is held in the field, and somehow through that prayer, I remembered a re-experience. It was really a more of a it was more than remembering, it was a re-experiencing. It was a reliving of this, being in the
Mhm.
light, being, in that unconditional love, and then being whisked out into a body, contracted into a body again, and, so those are that was my beginning, and so that really affected my sensitivities as a child. I wasn't
Mhm.
aware of, you know, this experience as a child, but I was quite sensitive, and now when I look back, these are the reasons, and I had precognitive abilities, which I did not see as a gift at all, because there was seeing before people would pass, or it was around death, I would see a light around them, and I would know they're passing. I could be in a grocery store, and I still to this day, I could feel people when they're passing, and I loved my grandmother, she owned, convalescent retirement homes for people, and I loved to be around the older people because I could feel that they were half in it, some of them especially were half in and half out here. Part of them was, already on their way out, and so I loved being around that
God.
energy, and so I could feel it when I also, was where, inconveniently, I didn't see it as a gift of my brother's passing. He was in a car accident, and I knew before. I didn't know how, and I can tell you that all the people that I feel that are going, my mentor, I felt it before when he was going. In fact, before he died, I went and bought a coffin because I felt like it was me. I was so sure that, I was gonna die. It does feel like I'm dying, and so but this is not something that, like, I enjoy, and please don't come and call me and ask me when you're gonna die because I won't tell you because it's nobody's business, when you're gonna die. It's it's just something I'm tapping into, um, and there it is. So
You know, Tammy, we were talking about this before, and I don't generally want to interrupt a story, but you are the first person that I have ever heard of besides myself. I'm sure there's others I
yeah,
just don't personally
I'm
know.
sure.
I have that same thing.
Mm,
And I was always saying that it was a gift. I just didn't know what it was for, and I still don't. But I um, started to see that at the age of 18 years old.
mm,
So it came on at 18. I seen my first, but mine looks like half the body is a light, and it comes out, and then it goes back in, and then it
interesting.
comes out, and it goes back in. And then on the other side of the body, I can see through the bones of the body.
Wow, interesting.
And it immediately says they're going to transition. It tells me immediately. But when the first time it happened, it was with my best friend.
Oh, wow.
And I tried to get her not to go. I don't even know how I would have known
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
it was, but I immediately knew. I guess my soul knew.
Yeah.
So I find that very I've never met anybody that has that. So that really have you ever found out what this is for?
No, I didn't feel like it was for any convenience on my side. I think it's just an awareness. I think it's just an awareness that, happened. I didn't see it as a gift. Um, I saw it as a challenge, and,
Mm,
um,
mhm.
but, it's interesting because now, it seems to be helping me in the work that I do now as a medium. And so anyways, so there was an experience at the church, I'll share how I experienced some of it sometimes, is the priest that I was talking about, we became friends, and I would assist him at the healings that he would do, and thousands of people would come for healings, and I loved being around that and participating in that. And one day he said, I have to go to appointment here in the parish, and he didn't tell me who was coming to see him, but I just decided to sit in the chapel, and I started s praying and combining my healing, intention to whoever he was seeing. And what happened was this little girl came into my awareness. And she told me her name was Cassie, and I saw her surrounded by light. She was about 10 or 11 years old, and I knew she was passing, and there was such peace around her. And I didn't tell my friend, the priest, because I thought he would think I was nuts. And I didn't talk about this, but my sister knew, and I told her, "Let's keep an eye on the paper because this little girl told me that she's gonna pass in a few days." So we kept an eye on the paper, and this little girl's obituary ended up in the paper a few days later, and her name was Cassie, short for Catherine. And so I never talked to anybody, in the family because it wasn't my place. It's not our place to talk about this to people. And
I tried to tell my friend,
yeah, you can't.
and they just look at you like,
Yeah, like brother. Several months before he passed, every time he'd turn around, I'd see his back. It was, I'd feel like somebody's punching me in the stomach, and I kept telling my mom, every time he turns around, I see his back, it feels like he's going away and he's not coming back. And she knew enough to just get worried, and so she was trying to get him to get rid of his motorcycle, and she was trying to think, because I didn't know how it was gonna happen. I just knew that,
Right.
he was going away and he wasn't coming back. The day he passed, uh, um, he was getting ready to get on his motorcycle, and I said, "Hey, where's your helmet?" And, he said, "Okay." So he went back in the house, put his helmet on, put the visor up, and said, "Goodbye, I love you." And it was just like somebody punched me in the stomach, and I just couldn't say anything. I couldn't say, "I love you," couldn't say nothing. And, I just remember being in a daze, the rest of the day. Well, he had gone over to his friend's house where his dad had given his friend, a 16-year-old, a Porsche for his birthday, and my brother was 18, and they decided to go for this drive in the mountains. Well, they like to go fast, and, um, they missed a curve, and my brother was killed instantly. And
I'm sorry.
that evening, the phone rang, and nobody had told us anything, but the phone rang, and I looked at my mom and my dad. The memories are so clear, it's, like, so interesting because it's such a anyways,
Mhm.
she the phone rang, and I just looked at my mom and I said, "Ron's dead." And you don't say that before because it sent them into a panic, and it just popped out of my mouth. I just knew that that phone call was about him, uh, being gone, and so it made things worse to say it before. Didn't help anything. So that was quite, a life-changing event, and the same with you know, my mentor who jumped off a bridge I knew before, months before, and, so that was one of the hardest, that one, and I was so convinced that I was, because it feels like what it feels like to me is part of me is dying, and in a sense, when we lose our loved ones, we do feel like we're dying, part of us goes with them,
Mhm.
and so I bought a coffin, I had it ready, I was ready to told my students, I teach a martial arts instructor, um, and, I told him, "Yeah, yeah, here it is. It's in my basement, so just take it when we need it." Yeah,
You
you know
know, that's interesting that you say that because, I had my stepdad pass away this February,
Mhm.
and, but I was far away, so I wasn't able to actually see them. I didn't know who it was. I just knew something was happening, and I had sat up straight in the middle of the night, and I woke my husband. I said, "Oh my god, I think I'm dying." Like, I thought it was me.
Yeah,
It was a feeling kind of this one was a feeling of dread.
yeah.
Like, this one was really strong, and I'm like, "Oh, something's wrong with me, and I think I'm gonna die." He's like, what's going on here?" And then it turned out and then I stopped, and I looked at him, and I said, "Someone's gonna die." And he says, "Is it me?" And I'm like, "No."
Poor guy.
Yeah. But no, it wasn't him, but I said, "I'm not sure who it is," but I was afraid to fall asleep. I actually thought it was going to be me for a minute.
Yeah,
That's how it felt,
yeah, it
and I'm
does
like,
feel that
"Oh,
way.
no." Yeah, it
Mhm.
feels very odd, like it's, I don't know what it's for, but I'm happy to know
It's
someone else
just
is
a
just like
connection.
me, or
It's just
I'm
a
just like you.
I think it's just a connecting, we're just aware of because
Mhm.
there is really ultimately only one. There is, and we're an aspect of us is dying in a sense.
Right?
And it's
Mhm.
interesting when the fear comes up because fear is an opportunity to choose love and just
Mm,
to open into that spaciousness of
I
what's
love that.
happening. There is no death, it's
Mhm.
just a seamless transition. And
Yeah.
I wish they wouldn't have called it near death because there's nothing death about it. It's near life. It's more life feeling than this. It's more real than this. Feeling this feels like a dream when you're in that experience. And right before my brother died, We had
Mhm.
talked about an experience I had, a third near-death experience, a few months before he
Sure.
died, and I liked ever since I was little, I liked to go into nature, and as a teenager, I would go into the mountains and pray and fast, and I at that time, I was real reading about the mystics and the people who used prayer and fasting as a way to connect to God, and so I was doing that. I was fasting, I hadn't eaten for a week. I was in the mountains, climbing and walking trails and praying, and it was very hot, and I hadn't drank enough water, and I just overdid it, and
Mhm.
I collapsed from a heat stroke, and I just collapsed on the trail, and I just remember going out of my body, and being in the light, going towards the light. It felt like I was in a river of souls going towards this light that was in front of me. And it did feel like a tunnel, but the tunnel felt like there was no edges, no, it was expansive, the edges of the tunnel. And so I was going toward this light that was absolutely unconditional love that was permeating through my being. And it feels like it's going through every aspect of you. It feels, and all the souls that were moving, I can't tell you how many, it was just like thousands or millions. There was no number. It was infinite amount of souls going, moving towards this light. So it's like being in a river of souls. And it was interesting because each one I noticed had different colors. So it was like this river of different colors of souls. And I can only think now that maybe that had something to do with the vibration they carried,
Mhm.
the different colors. And then I noticed right in front of me, all of a sudden, my grandfather, I saw his back, and I said, "Papa," and he turned around, and there his back, he turned around, and it was like this blending. It was so what's amazing reunion, and I love my grandfather so much. He had passed, um, I don't know how long, probably a few years before, and it just was this yeah, he passed when I was 16, and anyways, we're just blending together, and I asked him, I it would just it's hard to describe. I'm sorry that I skip over the words because this is an experience. It's not something in your mind. So it's hard to
Mhm.
put into words. So I feel like I stumble trying to describe this. But as best I can, it was like a dissolving into each other. It was more than telepathic. It was soul to soul, a blending. It was the heart blending. It was the mind. It was everything aspect of me was blending with him, and he was blending with me, and it was just unconditional love of each other.
Mhm.
And then I asked him, I said, "Okay, so have you met Jesus? Because I'd like to know the real story about him." Because you hear all these stories and you don't know what's true. And all of a sudden, when I said that to my grandfather, I was standing in front of Jesus. I was looking into his eyes, and it was incredible love. And I just felt like I was being dissolved into his love, more magnificent than anything that I could ever describe. Uh, this this blending, and people say, "Well, what did he look like?" I can't tell you. I can tell you that I was blending into the eyes, his eyes, and this incredible love. I just felt held, and I knew him. He was allowing me to understand. And I don't share a lot about it because, I don't want to offend anybody. Your path is your path. My brother's a
Mhm.
very conservative Christian, and, that's his path. And it's like beautiful. It's beautiful for him. And
Mhm.
so
That's
everybody's
right.
path is different, and all roads lead home, no matter which one you choose.
That's
And
right.
but I learned a lot about the question, what's the real story about Jesus? And he invited his whole purpose was to invite us to walk not uh, beside him, not behind him, not below him. He was giving us an example of what it is to open up into that aspect of you that is an aspect of the divine one I am. We are all that. We are that. And he was very, he had opened into that realization of who we really are. And it really is the fabric of love, the essence of love of who we are, that unconditional essence. And so there's a lot more there, but I want to continue. The next
Sure.
part was as I was being uh, absorbed into his love, this beautiful, beautiful being uh, took a hold of me and took me to the side because I was going towards the light with him. And so something just came to my mind, and I wanna stop right
Sure.
here because there's some people out there that are claiming that the light is a lie, that don't go to the light, it's faking you, you're gonna be recycled again. It's like, I don't know where they're coming up with this stuff, but they haven't had this experience, so, just wait till you get there and so
Mhm.
this is not true, uh, and but anyways, I was going into the light, drew me to the side, and I do believe at this point, as I've this is a lifetime of integrating this experience. It's not instantly you're
Mhm.
awakened or something like that. You integrate these experiences, near-death experiences into your life, and so as I've gone along, I've realized that that beautiful being that pulled me to the side was me, and anyways, as I was asking all these questions, I was first asking questions of this light being, um, with my words. I was asking, why do people suffer? And, why do babies born, that have no control over anything, why do they suffer? And a lot of it was around suffering, but I didn't realize I had so many questions. As I asked the question with my words, then I realized that all I had to do is think it, the question, and then the answer came. So as fast as I asked the question, the answer would come. And then all of a sudden, it just got faster and faster. And then all of a sudden, it was like a download of sparks of light. Different colors, sparks of light were coming into me, just, unbelievably fast. And it was going through me. And each was different color. And each piece of light, dart of light that was coming through me felt like a download. And it was ecstasy on ecstasy. It was just like explosion. And yeah, it was quite incredible. And then so it was just I was in this, and then all of a sudden I was drawn back to go so there's that contrast again between nobody asked me if I wanted to come back. It was just like, really fast, and I was just whisked back, and what drew me back was the sound of a horse in my ear. I felt the steam of his voice, the steam of his mouth, and I heard his voice go, "Ah," and in my ear, and that horse was across the hill, I found out later. So I don't know how in the world, but somehow those in spirit devised that he would bring me back to a physical state, and it
Mhm.
was painful, I have to say. It was terrible. In fact, I thought to myself, I laid there for hours. It had to be over 3 hours. I couldn't hardly move, and I was just laying there until it got dark, and maybe it was because my body was cooling off, I don't know, but, um, I it was so incredibly painful. The contrast between being in that expanded state, just exploding to all of a sudden into a restricted skin, container, restriction, slow. It was just intense. It was so I laid there for hours, um, just miserable, and then that came the time of integration, and I wanna say that there's a long path of integration. For me, it's been a lifetime. I have to say that still unfolds. Um, but I spent over 13 years looking at religious communities. I lived with the Benedictines, the Franciscans, the Dominicans, and I lived in a hermitage for a year, where he didn't talk for a year. And so 13 years of looking at different religious communities, thinking that I would live uh, the religious life and make that my life. And I was just drawn so much to prayer and to silence and service. And so I did a lot. I was, in a lot of different communities doing different service. I worked with battered women. I did counseling. I was a hospital chaplain. I all kinds of jobs with poor. I went and worked in prisons, and so I remember wiping the table one day after we fed 400 people in a homeless shelter in town, and we had a soup kitchen there in Milwaukee and at St. Ben's. And I remember wiping the table, uh, and this gentleman was finishing his meal. He was eating really slow, and I was just cleaning up. And I remember looking into his eyes, and I'll never forget it. This was, gosh, that had to be like 30 years ago. But I'll never forget because I looked into his eyes, and it was so beautiful. And it was just like we were looking into each other, and I realized there was no server and there was no served. There was only one. And it was a pretty profound experience. We think, as people who are doing good works or healing that we're doing something, we're serving ourselves in a sense. There is only one. So what we do with others, we're doing for ourselves. Um, yeah, it's hard to put into words that, but I realized there was
Mhm,
no other. There was no other there
mhm,
except one I am. So those are my three near death experiences and how I've integrated over a lifetime. For years, I spent in religious communities, but then one day I was with a group of sisters. We were protesting U.S. involvement in Central America, and we were getting arrested on purpose. And I remember this looking into the sister's eyes as she was getting the handcuffs put on, and she was resisting the officer, and she had so much anger in her eyes, and I thought, "We're here for a nonviolent protest," and it didn't make sense to me. And then I saw deeper into her. I saw that what she was angry about had nothing to do with the protest. And so
mhm,
that brought me to the question, what am I angry about? What am I holding inside my heart that I haven't forgiven? Uh, so I went inside myself and asked myself that question. And what I realized is I had a lot of emotional work to work around with my dad, my father, because I had a rough time. We had a rough time when I was growing up. And so I decided I packed everything up, drove 2,000 miles, uh, and I left the idea of ever joining a community, and I went to work on that relationship with my father. And I have to
oh,
tell you, it was a disaster. We about killed each other. And so
wow.
what I realized is I had to go deeper. I had to work on myself. I had to work on the pain within myself. Love does not come from the outside, it comes from the inside out. And so many of us are trying to find love from the outside. Needed
Mhm,
at the time, love from the outside, validation from outside of myself, my father. And it was like, no, go deeper. These patterns maybe are generational that we're born into. It's our job to
mhm,
deal with what we've been born into, bring our light and transform it. And so I spent the next
mhm,
10 years working on my own psychological wounds, pains, injuries, and learning how to forgive myself, forgive others. And I became a psychotherapist, and there we go. It's not eh, I've walked the walk of this path. I've done the work, and so Yeah, and then I realized that at a certain point, I'm in my mid-60s now, and I realized that there was nothing ever to fix. There was nothing ever broken, that
Mm,
we are beautiful as we are in all our imperfection, and we're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to experience this life with all it has to offer, which is an amazing. You don't have to have a near-death experience to
uh-huh.
experience this love. And I wanna tell people that because so many people are listening to these and wishing that they weren't here, and we're here for a reason.
Mm,
I can say at this point that I'm absolutely 100% grateful to be here, to be in a position where I can just live this life, live with all
mm,
the foibles of myself and all the
right,
foibles of others, and keep practicing bringing transforming w the challenges of life into love, into kindness, loving kindness, compassion, forgiveness for ourselves, forgiveness for others. It's all about love, and,
that's right.
so that's there's plenty more. I mean, I wrote about a lot of these stories in a way that would tap into your own stories, your own
Mm,
invitation to surrender into love as you walk through your own story. That was the purpose of writing this book that I just wrote, and it was just released
mhm,
in August. I wrote it in a way it is a gift, um, to you, and I people when they're writing reviews on it, they're saying, "I felt like I was walking with a friend. I felt like it opened up things in me that I hadn't even thought about," and in a way, and it was like a companion, and that's the way I wrote it, was like walking with a friend as you're going, and I use my story as a framework, but it's meant to, uh, invite you to pause and to explore your own journey and surrendering into love and transforming. All of us have had many opportunities through our life to transform what's arising, the challenges, into something more beautiful, something more peaceful, something more full of light and love. And so, yeah, that's my
wow.
work right now.
You've had quite the experiences over your entire life.
Yeah,
So you
and
were born with all of this.
born with all this
Mhm.
and a very strong character role. I mean, you know, I've been driven, my life to reconnect with that, and not realizing for many years that that reconnection was from the inside out, not the outside in.
That's right.
And,
Mhm.
but I've had many experiences. I mean, I have a fifth degree black belt in Aikido. I have a school of martial arts I've taught over 44 years of practice. And the word Aikido means the way of harmony. And so, uh, harmonizing with life, that's what it's about. It's not using power or strength against someone else, but
Mhm.
it's actually blending. It's a very water feel. It's just a blending,
Mm.
taking the energy of what's coming in and redirecting it into a safe place for both. It's not intended to. Yeah, it's a very beautiful art, and before that,
Mhm.
I was training for the Olympics. I was five-time national championship team, and then I also uh, made the Olympic trials in 1980, and I placed 13th, in the Olympic trials, and I didn't make the team, but I was hoping to make the team in '84, but then the politics got involved, and so I said,
Right.
"Heck with that, I'm done," and I joined the Air Force. So I've had a lot of experiences in my life that have have helped me, and then I was a perpetual student, so I have an
Mhm.
undergraduate in theology, two master's degrees, one in kinesiology and one in marriage and family therapy. So it's been a lifetime of trying to integrate. And what I realize is it's it's not just of the mind, it's not just of the heart, it's an integration of all this. And to me, what makes it
Wow.
most joyful at this point in my life is service. So I love being of some use to people in a
Yeah.
sense, but I'm not attached to it. If it wasn't there, then I'm grateful for the opportunity. But there is another story that just comes to my awareness, and so
Sure.
again, I write about these stories, and probably better to read it because I put a lot more detail. But there was one experience. Why I'm telling you this is because one of the most powerful people in the world is the one who has nothing to lose.
Ah,
So it's the fear that keeps us attached, the fear,
that's right.
and that fear keeps us almost immobilized, or doing things that we wished we hadn't after when we look at it because we're trying to protect something. There's nothing to protect in a sense. And it's interesting coming from somebody that taught self defense for over 10 years at the university. What are we actually protecting? But um, in France, when I was in my 20s, I was traveling around Europe in different religious communities, checking them out and living with them. And I was on my way to Taizé, France, and I was taken down a dirt road by a man, kidnapped basically. And the body's shaking like this, as he was driving down this road and trying to get seclusion, and my body was shaking like cartoon, the knees knocking, and I thought, I started praying, and I said, if this starts, one of us will die here today. I will kill him, he'll kill me, but I will never be a victim. And so as soon as I let go of my life, the power was humongous. The power just exploded, and he was filled with fear. His body started shaking because there was only one life left to take, and it was his. And
Mhm.
I was already I surrendered completely. It's like, "Okay." And
Wow.
that's in that surrender, so my book, when I, uh, write, it's very much about the act of surrendering in our life.
Mhm.
Surrendering is where we find the power. We let go, we stop the grasping. We can make strong intentions like, I mean, I know about intention, I know about focus. I mean, I couldn't have, got 5 50-degree black belt or 13th in the Olympic trials if I didn't know what focus was. I mean, I was training 7 to 8 hours a day. And so, intensive training. So that's focus. I know focus. But we make the focus and then we release because we don't know
Right.
where it's gonna go, and so that the grasping is what keeps us in our stuckness. That's what I found, and, there's a surrender that needs to happen so that we're free. In that moment, I was free. He had nothing to grasp onto him, he could do nothing because I was free, and I pointed my finger at him. I said, "You start this car. Now you take me to town where you should have taken me in the first place. I mean, no, you take me to a hotel, and then tomorrow you're gonna take me to where you should have taken me in the first place." And it was
Mhm.
like watching somebody die because the color went out of his face. Fear just went into him, and he drove like a robot to the hotel. He took me there. I
Wow.
didn't know this person. This was just a crazy situation. And he picked me up the next day, took me to where I was supposed to go, and he said, "Careful, it's a dangerous world out there." And I said, and I took a Franciscan cross and I gave it to him. I said, "I'll see you again someday because I know I will. I'll see him in, the next
That's right.
dimension." And for me, this was in a sense unknowing pride to his conscious self was a teaching for me that the power is in surrender and letting go. And that's when
Mhm.
letting go of the fears is primary. And as we move into a world where everybody on these are talking about, "Oh, the world's gonna end tomorrow," and, all this, and every time you look, on internet, there's a fear-based, thing to grab your attention. I'd say let go of the fear. Let go of all the fear of what, people are predicting for the future to happen. Let go of it. The world has always had its struggles, uh, from the beginning of time. This is no different. It's different in that we got technology and all this stuff, and it's interesting. It's an amazing time to be here on this planet.
That's
But
right.
don't get wrapped up in the fear, I would say. Let go of the fear. You'll find your power. Be in love. That's who you are. And let go of all of it. And love will always win.
Always.
I would say let go of the fear. Don't focus on the fearful stuff that people are talking about. And be you. Be that authentic aspect of who you are, uh, which is a unique expression of the light of God. Be that.
Mhm.
And people often ask, "What's my purpose?" Your purpose is to love each other. Love yourself, love others, forgive. And it doesn't matter what you do. Do whatever you do with love.
Mm.
If you're sweeping the
So
floor, do it with
beautiful.
love. If you're washing dishes, do
Mhm.
it with love. It doesn't matter. What matters is who you are in the doing.
Mhm.
Who are you in the
Right?
being? And so I probably talked enough today, and so hope
That
that
was beautiful.
I feel like
That
I'm
was
going on
so
and on,
beautiful.
and people are gonna say, "Oh, you talk too much." And
No.
so
I do have a few questions for you, though.
okay.
I would love to know, what do you think the significance is of all 3 of your NDEs in this lifetime?
The significance.
Mhm. Some people have 1. I mean, you had 3.
I have to be hit over the head a couple times. I don't
Why
know.
do you think you had 3 NDEs?
I don't know if I could say a why, it just is. And it's
Mhm.
shaped my
Okay.
life, it's shaped my direction. Um, many people after near-death experience say it changed their whole direction in your life. I don't know the difference
Mhm.
because I started from day one in a direction where I was, um, and when I was 7 years old, I remember sitting on the side of my house and very sensitive, and I was watching people come in and out of the house of my neighbor because their son had just been killed in a motorcycle accident. And so I was absorbing that feeling of what it would be like to lose somebody I love and just feeling overwhelmed by that and realizing even if I walk across this grass that I'm causing damage, that a bug dies and I thought to myself as a little child, this is a childlike thinking, but I thought, I want to, as long as I'm here, I want to cause as much love and less damage as I can. Less hurt. I wanna work my best, do my best to cause as much kindness and love. I don't know where that came from, except maybe that was a drive from these near-death
Mm.
experiences, because there is a feeling from these experiences that you want to bring the light into the world. You want to
That's
be a part of that transformational, expression, um, of love,
Would
and
you
so,
ever say
yeah,
that
that's the significance.
NDEs are awakening for some people?
Yeah, I mean, it is an awakening, but I wanna emphasize that, um, usually it's a process as well for people. They're not like
That's right.
enlightenment just doesn't happen usually in a moment. I
Yeah.
mean, it can. I mean, there are stories I imagine of people who've know that they're enlightened beings now, and for me, enlightenment has been a process, and I'm not gonna say I'm enlightened. I we fall asleep when we wake up. We fall asleep when we wake up. We live. We're here to have a human being experience.
Mhm.
And, so yeah,
So, if I was to ask you, where is the other side? Where
there's
is it?
it's a state of being. There is nowhere. You can ask yourself, where is a human being? Where are
Mhm.
you? You don't really know. People say, "Well, it's a hologram." People say it's not. It's the Matrix. People say, all kinds of stuff. If I asked you the same thing, where are you? And science can't tell us really truly where we are or who we are. And so it's like it's a state of being. It's all a play of the light. It's all play of love. It's all an expression of the one I am in different uh, possibilities. And this expression, I have the opportunity as light being to forget and remember. I have an opportunity to know what I'm not by experiencing what I'm not just an idea. I have the opportunity to choose love when it's not so easy. Can I even choose to love this? Sometimes it's no. So then I
Mhm.
turn that no into a yes. Can I even love this? So this is an amazing opportunity to not remember and then remember, to have the contrast of things like suffering, to have the depth of making a choice. Love would not have the depth it has unless we were having a human experience as well.
Mm.
This is a point of our experience as a soul. It's a blink, this life. I I don't know, I don't wanna make up something, theology that people I don't sometimes I really get, conscious of how many people are projecting ideas out there that,
Mhm.
they can't be true, are they true? And who knows? We don't know, but I it feels like to me that, uh, all of my soul is not here. This is just like a dream, a projection
Right.
experience, just like that. Like, I'm just look
Mhm.
this way, like my soul is in, this room, but then if I look over out the window for just a minute, I can have a little daydream. That's what this feels like, this life.
Mhm.
It was just a little daydream. Most of me is
Mhm.
still in this room, which is, the realm of, uh, the soul. All of it is the realm of the soul. All of it is a realm of the light, but it's just different points of attention and experience. And this is an important experience. I don't want to discount
Very.
this life because
Mhm.
it's not about going into the next life. It's about experiencing this fully embodied
Right.
love.
Mhm.
Love the people,
S
right next to you. I have people, I'm a practicing medium now, and absolutely love it. And the thing is, I want to say to people is, um, often people come and say, "Well, I would like to say, one more time, I'd like to connect with them." And I'm saying, we can, but the thing is, connect with people right now one more time. Look at your people in your life and say, "I love you." Forgive that person now, if you can. It's
Say that they're just in a higher frequency than us?
higher, it's just different. But yeah,
Mm.
it's a faster, I would say faster. It's very
Oh,
much
faster.
faster, but I don't know, higher or lower. We in this human perception, we think of duality, so I guess we would say higher and lower, but we're not lower,
Mm.
we're just, different expression, um,
Mhm.
of density, so we can experience contrast. But yeah, w when you pass out of this physical form, vibration, um, it is much faster feel and it's less dense. And so it's a different expression of the light. This is also expression of the light, believe it or not.
Do do you think that we go somewhere after here and have, like, I'm not saying a human experience, but do you think there's, like, an experience of a place that is similar to Earth or maybe even another planet, I'm not even sure, but that has, like, buildings and streets and I mean, do you think that that's
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah, I mean, I expect. anything is possible as far as,
Uh,
because we're creative beings. We can create
right.
whatever we put our attention on. There we are. And I don't feel it's a place. I feel it's a state of being. And it's just
Mm.
like, not a different planet. It's like, strings on a guitar. They're vibrating. It's a vibrational experience, like strings on a guitar. And, a G is not the same as an E experience,
Yeah.
but they're unique and they make up the whole. This is a whole experience. This is a whole. I am. There is only one. So everything and anything is possible in these realms of expression and intention. We
Mhm.
are creation itself. And so, yeah, I don't think of it as a place. I think of it as state of awareness, state of being.
I love
I can be on earth and be in hell. I can be on earth
that.
and be in heaven. That's not a place. They're the same place, apparently. It's a state of
So
being.
can I make my earth heaven?
Absolutely, heaven on earth. Yes,
Mm. Yeah.
absolutely. By stop
Mhm.
grasping, stop reaching, intend, focus, l- create with joy, return to that aspect of you that is a childlike essence, not childish, but childlike essence of play, of
Mm.
wonder, of awe. Then the flow happens. You're in the flow. You find resistance in yourself. You're pushing back, you're grasping, you're pushing it away. Oh, well, my life is this way. It's like, let go, surrender little by little. And it's not, one let go, it's a continual let go. Focus on love, focus on the awe, the joy, and move into that aspect of you that is free. That freedom is not outside of ourselves, it's within. We make our own prisons by what we focus on. There is no prison.
Mhm.
You can put somebody in prison, or, in a jail here, and they can be as free as a bird. There are some people that, Nelson Mandela, is an
Mhm.
example of that. Freedom is inside out. It's not the outside in. So it's not the
Okay.
outside circumstances that determine who we are and what we'll express or be. It's an inside job. It's an inside expression. So if you want to be free, go into that aspect of you that has
Mhm.
never been born and will never die. Go into that aspect of you that is eternal. You are that which you're seeking. There's nothing outside of yourself.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
And my book, that on the front of it, I'll show you if I can.
Mhm. Yes,
Uh,
please.
this is the book that I just wrote. I recommend it as, and I'm gonna tell everybody that wants to tell me that I'm doing it for money. It's not true. You make a couple dollars on a book. It's not. If you want to be rich, don't write a book. And I have no desire for fame or fortune. I wrote this book as a gift, and it was a lot of hard work. And so, but people are telling me that it's like a companion. They're walking with a friend. They're realizing things about their own life, and it's an invitation to pause and to reflect on your own walk, and a walk in considering surrender and a lot of things I've talked about today. And there's some fun things in the book. I talk about in the fourth section, I talk about the mediumship path that I'm on.
Mhm.
And let's see, I'll show you a couple. I started how these drawings start. I've never taken a drawing class in my life. And I was doing a reading with a client, and I said, I was scribbling because you really have to be out of your mind to do this, to be open. You have to be empty, and it just comes through the information. And you can't try, you just have to be empty. and just very much like a martial art to me. Mediumship, I practice it like a martial art. In the martial arts, you have to be empty. You can't be thinking of a technique. If you're thinking of a technique, in a real situation, you're dead. It's too late. You have to move, you have to respond, you have to flow. And the same thing with mediumship or healing. I do healing as well, facilitate. I don't do the healing. I don't do the mediumship. I stay empty, zero in the midst of it and let it flow through. That's my work, and that's how I practice, is be as empty as possible. There's nothing special about mediums. I can tell you right now, it's not a gift. I work my butt off at getting empty. So when people say, "Oh, it's a gift," it's not. I work hard. I work hard at being empty, just like with my martial arts. I work hard at letting go, not being in my mind. If you're in your mind, you're not flowing. You're not flowing with the river. So,
Mhm.
anyways, I was doing a reading with uh, um somebody somebody that had lost a son, and and he, I was scribbling to get myself out of my mind, and he said to me, "Turn the paper over and start again and let go." And I said, "Okay." And so and a beautiful portrait came out, and I've never, drawn in my life, and he was a portrait artist in this life. He was an artist. So, these are some of the things the drawings that have come through. I don't know if you can see it. Am I holding it up right? 'Cause I
Wow.
can't see my
Yes.
then there's
Wow.
one.
Yeah.
No, I'll show you a couple
That's
more.
incredible.
But I have these are kind
And
of fun.
these are of
These
souls that have passed over,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, and these are in my book, and,
That's incredible.
I really like this one. Isn't that sweet?
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
I talk about my journey in mediumship and in the 4th section, and, but anyways, there we go. It's my gift to the world, and, I'm glad to put it out there. I'm very transparent in my presentation of the book, and that's how I live, and so, yeah.
So, Tammy Lee, if others feel drawn to your work, can you share some of maybe your services that you offer? You've just told us about your published works, but do you offer services?
Yeah, my website's healingwellness.com, and I have 3 services that I offer. I offer healing. I've been doing healing for over 40 years. And the healing, I wanna say that all healing is self-healing, but as somebody, um, that has done healing physically for people as well for over 30 years, and psychologically, what my position is create the conditions for healing to happen. So it's like helping
Okay.
amplify your own healing ability. I love empowering others to heal. I healed myself
Mhm.
of a spine injury. I was told I was going to be quadriplegic, and I if I was bumped again, and I was told that I needed a surgery to correct what was going on in my neck. I had pain that was beyond anything to describe. It was terrible, and I learned how to work with that pain. That was a really an amazing teacher. By the time I was getting ready to do the surgery, we had another MRI, and the neurosurgeon walked in afterwards and he said, "I have never seen this in 30 some years, somebody healing from this. What did you do?" And he said, "You don't even need to come back and see me." And and I said, "Is I'm just using the light." And so we can all do that. We can all heal ourselves, um, and bring ourselves back to that vibrational integrity that stems from our source, which is the light, which is love. And so that teach I go through a healing with people through a session. Then my other services is mediumship. So I connect with those loved ones that have passed. I love it. I love bringing consolation to people who are in deep grief, that our loved ones are still with us. They're not in some different world. They're just in a different perception of vibrational experience, and we will see them again. And I love bringing some peace with that and some communications. I love the gold nuggets that come across, and I just enjoying the heck out of it. And then uh, the third thing I offer is mentoring. So people can make an appointment. And I call it wellness mentoring. I don't call it psychological counseling, even though I'm a licensed counselor. I call you bring what you're dealing with, and we work from where you're at together. And so basically, I'm walking with you as a guide and as a mentor. And I've walked the walk. I haven't walked your walk, but I know what it is to do the real work of surrendering into love. And so I love to be available for that. So I do them all. I do them all out of love. I don't need to do any of it. Um, and so I'm fortunate that way. I don't need to do any of it. I I live a very simple life, and but I love all of it. I love every week I get to meet the most beautiful souls. I'm so grateful, and I do feel this is the last uh, part of my life. It's winding down, and I'm here, and
I'm
I
happy that
love
you're
it.
here.
Thank you.
Mhm. You're very
Thank you.
welcome. I've got 2 more questions for you.
Oh,
They're not big ones,
okay.
but I want, to know that if you had a loved one that was dying, what
Mhm.
would your advice be to them?
I don't have any advice. Be present with your loved ones. Just be present. I don't have any advice in the sense. I just be present with them, allow them to experience your love, and there's nothing to fear. It's seamless. And people who have had very challenging, I mean, I've had the worst of the worst. I've had as far as, doing the
Yeah.
mediumship, I've people have committed, suicides, and they've been in really bad car accidents, and I can tell you that there was just peace. It was seamless peace, and there's very little awareness, if at all, of pain. My funny story, my grandfather one time, he was very healthy all his life, but he got a brain tumor, and one time he was seizuring, and he was dying basically, and he was foaming at the mouth. To us, it looked like, horrible. And the ambulance drivers came and they revived him. And I never forget this because he looked up at us and he said, "Well, if that's dying, it sure is easy."
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What a
So
sense of humor he
yeah,
had.
he goes, "Well, that's not," and to us, it looked horrible. So if your loved one has passed in a really, challenging way, don't worry too much about it because they didn't feel hardly any of it, and then the memory of it is not there either. It's, they're
That's
okay
so
and you're
good.
okay, and it's all everything's okay, believe it or not.
And
Yeah.
my last question to you is, this is my signature returned question. So every soul returns with a truth. When you return from your last NDE, what truth or new truth did you return with?
The kingdom of God is within you, and the door has always been love.
Mm, that's
The door
beautiful.
has always been within when you and the key has always been love. So that idea, the door has always been within and the key has always been love, is you don't have to go outside of yourself to find this love. You are that which you are seeking. You are that which you're looking for. Just breathe into that. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe into that which you are. Surrender into
That's
that which you
beautiful.
are. Yeah.
Well, Tammy, I can't believe what an honor it was to have you today.
Thank
I
you.
really wanna thank you so much for being here,
Thank you. It's been an honor
and
to be here.
I also want to thank you for sharing your story with such openness and reverence, and your experience completely reminds us that the soul's journey doesn't begin and end where we think it does, and that
Absolutely.
love, guidance, and connection continue beyond the physical.
Absolutely.
I am deeply, deeply grateful for your voice and the light that you've brought to the return today. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, MJ. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. And to the audience, may this story remind you that we are never truly separated from love, from those we've lost, from Source itself. And
Absolutely.
until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.